In an accident, Zhong Xixi tragically urged her to dress up as an orphan girl who had been disfigured and bullied, and even brought a nanny brother to take care of facing strange relatives. Zhong Xixi, who had never understood how to write the word loss, suddenly became uneasy. Robbing her fiancé, okay. I'll give it to you, but I need to figure out the previous accounts first. Poor. Can't afford to eat. Zhong Xixi calmly entered the multi-billion-dollar warehouse space she brought with her. Clothing, food, housing, transportation, medicine and equipment, trucks and planes, and everything she had. But there's one thing that's difficult to handle. Why is the most powerful rough guy in the village who was falsely accused of having an affair with her getting more and more out of place when he looks at her? Xixi, they all say we're not clean, why don't we just pretend to be real? Zhong Xixi looked up at the person in front of her, strong and tall, with a fierce expression on her face, able to resist and fight. Look at my slender arms and legs, my small body, my face is slightly bitter. Keywords of the novel. 60. Lie in the arms of a rough man with billions of supplies to win without pop-ups. 60. Lie in the arms of a rough man with billions of supplies to win. Download the complete text. 60. Lie in the arms of a rough man with billions of supplies to win. Latest chapters to read. Chapter 1. Wearing Disfigured Women. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Wearing Disfigured Women. Xixi, that jade bracelet was originally passed down from the Bai family's ancestors to their daughter. In law. Now it's your cousin who is reporting to Bai Shuheng about their marriage. You have to give that thing to her. Xixi, did you hear me? Don't be silent, what auntie and you are saying is true. After being advised to have a full meal, Xixi, auntie is doing it for your own good. If you two didn't succeed, it's because you had no fate. You and the murderer have been convicted of hooliganism. Do you still keep this thing and wonder if he can change his mind? The sunset was mixed with the admonitions of middle-aged women at the door, and they entered through the palm-sized small window of the earthen house, appearing noisy and piercing. On the narrow earthen Kong, Zhong Xixi ignored it and flipped over, lost in thought towards the earth-yellow wall behind him. She touched the large scar on her cheek for the third time and looked carefully at the palm-sized mirror fragment. She's not Zhong Xixi, that seems incorrect. It should be said that she is not Zhong Xixi from the 1960s. She comes from the 22nd century and is a social animal. At 6 in the morning and 12 in the evening, the liver business collapsed during the inventory of billions of warehouse supplies for our partners. The end of her life was without warning, and Zhong Xixi didn't even have time to write a will. Oh, forget it. Anyway, she doesn't have any family or loved ones, she lives alone and dies alone. However, the current situation is a bit difficult. Integrating the original memories of this body, she couldn't help but feel a pang of angina. She's so unlucky. The original owner, Zhong Xixi, lost both parents when he was 15 years old and had been living with his younger brother at his uncle's house. The two of them worked every day to earn a living, and when they had free time, they had to take care of the whole family's food, drink, and do most of the household chores. He was the hardest working person in the family, but his life was the worst for the whole family. But fortunately, her parents had arranged a marriage for her before. Seeing that it was already 18 years old and I was about to get married to my fiancée, I was accidentally interrupted by my uncle's daughter, Zhong Xixi. There's no way, the original owner's biological partner has some skills. Not only did he graduate from high school, but he was also the only boy in the family. His father was also the village captain, so he didn't have to worry about food or drink. Can such good conditions be given to Zhong Xixi? The uncle's family put in a lot of effort to arrange for their fiancée Bai Shuheng and Zhong Xixi to meet privately, and even spoke ill of Zhong Xixi in private, which led to Bai Shuheng ignoring her and wanting to withdraw. The original owner was helpless and wanted to marry Bai Shuheng, so he went to Bai Shuheng to plead with him. However, he didn't expect to ruin the relationship between the two. Zhong Xixi became angry with embarrassment and directly pushed the original owner down. Unfortunately, the original owner's face collided with a stone, and blood flowed from his face on the spot. Fortunately, a solitary man in the village saw her and quickly carried her to the hospital, saving her life. However, she was disfigured. Originally, that man could testify to Zhong Xixi, but because he was once a murderer who had been imprisoned and had a bad reputation in the village, he was actually bitten back by Zhong Xixi, claiming that he had an affair with Zhong Xixi. He instigated him and Zhong Xixi to be labeled as hooligans, and the day after tomorrow he will go and reflect in front of the whole village. The Bai family took this opportunity to directly withdraw from the marriage and turned around to report their marriage to Zhong Xixi. They heard that all the materials had been submitted. Disfigurement, divorce, and bad reputation completely shattered the last line of defense in the original owner's heart. So, the original owner committed suicide by cutting his wrist in the middle of the night. Thinking of this, Zhong Xixi sighed. The original owner was really foolish. Do you still expect this one's own death to be exchanged for a scumbag's change of heart? Is it not me and my younger brother Zhong Mumu who suffer the most in the end? She was really happy, but letting her come over and take over such a mess was really frustrating. Outside, Aunt Lu Meili was wearing a shoe-pulled face, staring at her with small eyes. Her lips were bulging as she continued to persuade her to hand over the token that the Bai family had given her when they arranged for a baby marriage. It was a precious jade bracelet that was said to be very valuable. The next second, it suddenly revealed its true form. Hey you little bunny. You're stealing from my house again, aren't you? Look at me if I don't break your leg. Ah, auntie, stop beating me. I dare not, I dare not. I just see that my sister is too weak and I want to get her something to eat. A little boy's eager and cowardly voice immediately sounded, but accompanied by the sound of punches and kicks. Lu Meili may have tried to persuade Zhong Xixi for a while, but she didn't react. She became anxious and her words became more and more unpleasant. You're such a scumbag like your sister, a scumbag without a father or mother. I'm holding my fire, let's see if I won't kill you today. Upon hearing these, Zhong Xixi finally had a reaction. She quickly got up from the Kong and listened with her ears perked up. This should have been my little brother stealing food from my aunt's house, and I was caught. Thinking of the original owner's 6-year-old brother, her heart softened. After all, it occupied the other person's body, and the original owner's brother was also her brother. Such a young child, is that all she has to do? She immediately suppressed the dizziness in her head, got off the Kong, and opened the door of the room with a loud bang. Looking at the skinny and vicious old woman in the yard, he picked up the shovel from the corner of the wall and swung it over. Ah! Lu Meili never expected that Zhong Xixi would suddenly come out and be slapped straight in the face, screaming and taking a few steps back. Zhong Xixi took the opportunity to lift the short and thin boy from the ground, leaning on a shovel and panting as he looked at Lu Meili. Auntie, I fell asleep when I didn't speak earlier. My parents just gave me a dream and they said, in my dream, thank you very much for taking care of our siblings. As for the bracelet, they said they would tell you in their dreams where it was placed, just to thank your family for taking care of me and Mumu. Don't ask for it here, let's go back to the house and lie down and chat with my parents. Zhong Xixi finished speaking happily and, taking advantage of Lu Meili's lack of reaction, pulled her little brother into the room and slammed the door shut. That jade bracelet, when her parents passed away, she didn't even tell her where it was, otherwise she would have thrown it out for them a long time. The original owner didn't care about scumbags, she didn't care about them. And the original owner has always been a submissive person. Don't talk to people like this, just dare not speak up. Today's incident stunned Lu Meili. Although we are now overthrowing all ghosts and gods, people at this time are more superstitious than those who follow. Lu Meili was covered in goosebumps at that time. This girl, why did she stay indoors all day and feel like her whole body has changed? Her eyes were full of anger, as if she was about to eat someone. Isn't it a case of being possessed by evil? Then she immediately began reciting Amitabha Buddha in her mouth. After reading for a while, I saw that Zhong Xixi was determined not to open the door, so I had to go back to the north house where I lived first. Humph, I won't give it, right? Anyway, these 2 dead girls and siblings live with me, and the centimeters are all recorded in my own household. They don't have any food to eat. Ha ha ha, I have opened a new book. I beg the little ones to collect, like, and comment. Your collection is my motivation. Momoda. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Golden Finger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Golden Finger. If you don't listen, starve her a few times first. If you don't believe her, she's not honest. Lu Meili gave birth to 3 sons and 1 girl in total. The eldest and second in the family have both married wives and live in the east and west houses respectively. When they hear any noise, they all lie by the window and watch the excitement, but no one comes out to say a fair word. After all, the Zhong family has no separate families, and the whole family still has to listen to Lu Meili. Who wants to be in a mess? As for whether or not they will get the jade bracelet, they won't get any benefits at all. Whatever it is, just watch the excitement. In the southern room, Zhong Mumu looked at his sister who was unusually angry and was stunned. Is this still his soft and cowardly sister who only knows how to cry? Sister. But soon, Zhong Mumu stopped thinking and carefully took out a black steamed bun from her arms. Sister. I stole a steamed bun, hurry up, it's not dirty. At this moment, Zhong Mumu was wearing a small vest that couldn't tell the original color, with a pair of tattered adult shoes on her feet, walking slowly. Although his face was beaten black with some scratches, he still smiled happily. Here. Sister, your arm seems to be broken. Eat it quickly, and it will be fine. It won't bleed anymore. Zhong Xixi looked at her brother who relied on her for survival, and then glanced at the blood-red wound on her wrist that had been haphazardly bandaged. Her eyes couldn't help but turn red. This poor child thought his sister was just injured, but in fact, his true sister had already died last night. What he is facing now is just a completely unrelated stranger. Alas, but in her past life, she had a weak emotional connection. In this life, she finally had such a younger brother and will treat him well. Just as she was thinking about it, Zhong Xixi felt a wave of dizziness in her brain again. Oh, her body was so weak. This era is a planned economy, an era where even money cannot buy things, and one still needs tickets. Rural areas also need to pay public grain every year. Every family is facing difficulties. Although the Bai family still has stuttering, they can't die of hunger all year round and can't eat anything good. Arriving at their siblings' place, not to mention it. The original owner was already malnourished and had shed so much blood. It's strange not to feel dizzy. Sister, I'll secretly go outside and fetch you a bowl of water, and you can eat the steamed buns. At this moment, Zhong Mumu spoke again, and the little man walked outside with a bowl in his hand. Looking at his small figure, this child has a kind heart, but Zhong Xixi, who has never eaten such a thing before, I'm so hungry. I don't want to eat black bread and drink cold water, I really want to eat roasted chicken. Zhong Xixi's heart collapsed and she just wanted to roll her eyes. When she died suddenly, was it near the roasted chicken in the cooked food area? Ah, it smells so good. She seems to have smelled the smell of roasted chicken. Zhong Xixi closed her eyes and fantasized, suddenly she moved her nose, Does it really taste like roasted chicken? With a fierce bow of his head, my goodness, isn't that exactly a greasy roasted chicken lying in his palm? This. Does she not only have her soul transmigrated, but also possess special abilities? Sure enough, the heavens closed a door for her, but opened a window. Coincidentally, Zhong Mumu came back to fetch water, and Zhong Xixi was so scared that she quickly hid the roasted chicken behind her. Zhong Mumu didn't notice anything unusual and walked over holding a bowl of water, handing it to her. "Sister, here you are." Zhong Xixi. In the end, a hint of tenderness appeared in Zhong Xixi's eyes. "Hey. Forget it, she's a brother with blood ties, so she should be able to keep a secret for her, right? Mumu, please close the door and come over." Zhong Mumu obediently closed the door and returned to lie on the edge of the Kong, looking up at her with round eyes. Zhong Xixi didn't want to lie to these innocent eyes, so she moved her gaze away. Cough. "I just said that dreaming about my parents is true, and they even brought us food. Do you believe that?" Zhong Mumu nodded and said, "I believe it. I also often dream of my parents, and in my dreams, they even make me delicious food. Chicken legs. Chicken cake. And sugar." He counted the things he had never eaten with his fingers, thinking and drooling first. Wiping off saliva, Zhong Mumu looked up and met a plump roasted chicken. Still steaming. A big, oily and tender roasted chicken. Zhong Mumu widened her eyes, first looked around, and then patted her face. "It's not a dream. Sister." He widened his eyes, and Zhong Xixi quickly pulled a chicken leg and stuffed it into his mouth. If at this point, another bottle of happy fatty home water would be great. The next second, Zhong Xixi realized that there was actually an extra bottle of beverage in her palm. "What are you thinking?" "No, wait, may this have some connection to the billion-dollar warehouse of our partner?" The siblings hid in the room, eating and drinking roasted chicken and cola clean, and hid the remains of the bottle. Zhong Xixi felt energized, but still felt a bit uncomfortable, leaning against the Kong and feeling drowsy. Half asleep and half awake, she seemed to have returned to the billion-dollar warehouse. However, this warehouse is divided into zones. The previously obtained roasted chicken is in the first eating area, where there are various cooked foods and daily necessities that can be seen everywhere in daily life. The second area further back is filled with more upscale items such as medical equipment and some red and green potions, while the third area is filled with transportation vehicles and unknown floating small models. There were still some areas beyond that, as if shrouded in a mist, and she couldn't see anything. Except for the first area, all other areas are locked, and there is a blurry electronic progress bar below. It seems that only the items in the first area can be taken out currently, while the rest need to be unlocked. However, what conditions are required for unlocking? Also, are there any conditions or restrictions on the items in this warehouse that can be taken out? Zhong Xixi decided to give it a try. She tried taking something else, a lollipop. Got it. I silently recited something else, but there was no response at all. Zhong Xixi thoughtfully stuffed the lollipop into Zhong Mumu's mouth. Today, she took it from the warehouse 3 times in total, and on the 4th time, the item couldn't be taken out. Moreover, every time I finish taking something, my body feels a sense of exhaustion from being emptied out. Is it true that taking these things requires physical exertion, and her current physical strength can only be used 3 times a day? So, does she need to strengthen her body in the future, so that the number of times she takes things from the warehouse will increase? Sister, it's so sweet. Zhong Mumu hugged the waist of his only relative, and the lollipop in his mouth happily left tears in his eyes, leaving a black mark on his face. Zhong Xixi is a bit disdainful, but also a bit heartwarming. Reaching out to touch his brother's messy little head, Zhong Xixi said, "Mumu, we will get better and better in the future, but we must keep it a secret when our parents dream of giving us food, you know. Otherwise, if Auntie's family finds out, these things will definitely be taken away, and we will have to go hungry again. It is even possible to directly kill the chicken and get the eggs, so Zhong Xixi must give his younger brother advance instructions." Just as I was thinking about it, suddenly a commotion came from outside. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Not rare. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Not rare it was Lu Meili who came back and went straight to the next room, not this way. Zhong Mumu was immediately frightened and shivered all over. Upon hearing the food about to be snatched away, my head immediately shook like a drum. Don't say it, don't say it. I definitely won't say it. The sky gradually darkened, and the two siblings, who were well fed and drunk, held wooden sticks against the door, climbed onto the Kong, ready to sleep. I have to say, this room is really small, black, and dilapidated. So small that it can only accommodate the earthen Kong for the siblings to sleep on and less than 2 square meters of space, so dark that during the day, except for the light shining through the small window facing north, there is nothing to see, so broken that at night, you can even look up and see stars in the past. This was a livestock shed built with soil embryos. The old Zhong family has not been separated from the older generation. The siblings of Zhong Xixi originally lived in the east room with their parents, but later their parents disappeared. The aunt said that their children didn't need to be so spacious, so it was better to let their second brother get married. They built a Kong here and let them live. The broken wooden door was only added later. Later, Zhong Xixi heard that getting married in Dongwu was a condition specially proposed by her sister-in-law before she got married. This family. But everyone knows how to calculate. But the original owner was weak and easy to bully. Now that she has come, it won't be so easy to bully her again. With her fierce determination to pursue her career in her past life, no one can take advantage of her. In addition, she now has a mysterious warehouse worth billions of dollars. She will definitely work hard and lead her younger brother to cross this era better. Thinking and thinking, she slowly fell asleep. The next day when she woke up, Zhong Xixi heard Aunt outside talking to the 2 daughters-in-law who were helping while cooking breakfast. She leaned over the door and looked, while Aunt was gesturing towards her own room with her mouth open. Tell her to stay inside, don't ask her to eat, starve those 2 little bunnies. Even if you come out, don't give her food. Even if you want to take care of a girl's things, how can she have the face to eat? The second daughter-in-law was leisurely picking wild vegetables. Upon hearing these words, her eyes rolled and she immediately smiled pleasantly. That's right, asking her not to listen to my mother. A wild girl is 100 or 8,000 miles worse than Choo-Choo. It's good to argue with Choo-Choo. After all, the mother-in-law gave birth to 3 sons in a row before getting married to the girl. The younger sister-in-law is the most favored in this family, and is the mother-in-law's precious child. Praising her is definitely right. Sure enough, as soon as she said these words, Lu Meili was happy and immediately arranged the easiest life for her. You go over there and peel garlic. The eldest daughter-in-law has a more straightforward personality, and she still has a little conscience in this family. She only works there and doesn't speak. As for Lu Meili's 3 sons and a girl, they have never been able to lend a hand and have been waiting in the north room like an old man. Mom, don't just give me the eggs, also give them to my sister-in-law to taste. Zhong Choo-Choo coquettishly cried out. She has always been good at pretending, and in modern times, it's like green tea. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to seduce the fiancé AE by Shuheng so quickly and make Lu Meili dizzy. Lu Meili immediately chuckled and said, oh my daughter is kind-hearted, but this is just an egg. Let's hold on to you for now. Tell me, they are all girls from our family. Why do some people eat eggs, while others don't even take a bite of cold water? They all earn it themselves. Zhong Xixi rolled her eyes and didn't even open the door. This was for herself to listen to. Don't give it to eat, she has plenty to eat anyway. Eggs. She's not rare. She made sure that everyone outside had gone to eat in the northern room. She tried and took out a large basket of big meat buns from the space, 9 in total, enough for her and her brother to eat for a day. She realized that although there was a limit on the number of times she could take things out of this space every day, as long as the unit was 1, she could take them out, such as a cage, a bucket, or even a truck. However, if she took too many of these things, there was no place to hide them, and she would still be the one who suffered. So she only took one basket of buns. This is also something in the first area, such as steamed buns, mantou, roast chicken, roast duck, noodles and other ordinary household foods. I picked up a few and ate them with my younger brother. They are truly from a billion-dollar warehouse, using the best ingredients. The taste is amazing. As she watched her younger brother, who was full of oily food and satisfied and shocked, she once again instructed him not to reveal anything about his parents dreaming of giving him food. Zhong Mumu nodded frequently, and Zhong Xixi couldn't help but feel that the child was really easy to deceive. Soothing the child well, she hid the remaining buns in the corner of the Kong. She took out a trauma medical kit from the space again, but her wound has been left untreated. Don't get infected. Ask my younger brother to help remove the mess on his wrist, carefully disinfect and medicate himself, and finally wrap it with gauze. Then cover it with clothes, and if you don't pay attention, you won't be able to see it. Fortunately, the original owner was timid and didn't cut deeply. It should have healed soon. Touching her younger brother's head, Zhong Xixi glanced at the door before squinting her eyes slightly. Now that you're fully fed, sleeping, and having enough energy, come and calculate the total amount. Even if the jade bracelet is found, it is impossible to return it. Although breakfast is not rare for her, she cannot make them so happy. Thinking about it, she pushed the door and walked out. The eldest daughter-in-law was coming out of the north room with a bowl and chopsticks in hand, and it seemed that they had already finished their meal. When she saw Zhong Xixi, a hint of embarrassment flashed on her face. "Big sister, you. Why did you wake up so late? Look, we've all finished this breakfast." Without waiting for Zhong Xixi to answer, the second daughter-in-law twisted her waist and pulled the eldest daughter-in-law, "What do you care about her? Mom told you to go wash the dishes quickly." Then he gave Zhong Xixi a slanted glance and said, "Not everyone in this family deserves to eat." Upon hearing this, Zhong Xixi didn't get angry either. He just snorted and walked towards the north room, saying, "Yes, a person who doesn't work doesn't have the right to eat. After all, I work the most at home, so I definitely have the right to eat. As for some people, that's not necessarily true. You." Upon hearing this, the second daughter-in-law looked at her empty palm and felt that she was embodying herself. "You wild girl can talk nonsense. What I'm talking about is you. If you don't have a father or a mother, you can just stay at my house and eat for free. You even grab clear things. It's shameless. What kind of face do you have to eat like this?" As she spoke, she saw Zhong Xixi rushing straight towards the north room and quickly rushed over to stop her. She shouted loudly, "Mom, this damn girl has come to steal food." She's not just trying to make things difficult for Zhong Xixi, she's just someone who always looks at people's faces. Her mother-in-law hates Zhong Xixi now, so she has to fight her hard so that her mother-in-law can see her good and give them more benefits. With a loud voice, Lu Meili and others all came out of the room and stopped at the door. Because of his involvement, Zhong Xixi immediately put on his hypocritical white lotus appearance and said, "Cousin, why are you leaving so quickly? Are you blaming my mother for not asking you to eat? She's also doing it for your own good. I'm about to marry Shu Heng, and if you don't return her bracelet, everyone will laugh at you. Otherwise, you should quickly take out your things, so that my mother won't cheat you for a meal." Lu Meili immediately answered, "That's right, I don't understand personnel at this age. What qualifications do you have to eat?" End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Finding Allies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Finding Allies. Do not understand personnel. For her good. Zhong Xixi smiled and said, "If you're going to say that, I'm going to say it today. The party has already said that labor is the most glorious, and I work the most at home, which is the most glorious one. Why am I not qualified to eat? I have to say that I am qualified. She looked at Zhong Xixi and pouted, she's the least qualified. Not to mention anything else, look at her hands. They don't seem like the hands of the working people. They don't touch the sunshine and spring water at home. I'm afraid they don't know anything. It's not a big deal, Auntie. You love your daughter, but I want to say a little more for everyone's good. If this gets known, let alone whether the Bai family will marry, maybe our whole family will be affected. I'm doing it for everyone's good. Compared to handing over the bracelet, it is obvious that the whole family will be implicated and have a greater impact. Suddenly, the face of the second room outside changed, even the third person in the house looked ugly. There is still him at home who hasn't married a wife yet. If there is a worm, who would be willing to marry him? No, 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 he jumped out first and shouted from behind, that's right, I think big sister is right. Little sister is also too lazy, she has to work in the future. Upon hearing this, the second daughter-in-law also changed her face and said sourly, I don't believe anything else, but that's true. Little sister, you have to work hard. In the future, you have to reach out to do household chores, and you also have to work in the fields. Look at which one in this family is not earning a salary, just leave the house idle every day. It's not that you insist on working, but at least you have to know how to do it. Otherwise, if you marry into the Bai family, not only will you be bullied, but sister-in-law is also doing it for your own good. Zhong Xixi's face turned pale in an instant and he hurriedly defended himself, no, no, I do. I really do. My mother has taught me before. Lu Meili quickly defended her daughter and said, yeah, who said my daughter can't work? If you meddle in your own business, I've already taught her here and abroad. She's better at anything than you guys. Zhong Xixi's eyes lit up as he watched the situation develop with great interest. So he turned around and pointed to a few cotton plants growing in his own field outside. Since that's the case, Auntie also wants us to be open-minded. The most we do now is to top the cotton, and let Chu also top the cotton. Let's see how well she does it. She really knows how to do it, so I won't say more. When cotton reaches a certain stage of growth, the top branches should be removed in order to remove the advantage of the plant's top and allow nutrients to be transported to other branches and leaves. Topping is equivalent to removing the top branches, which can be considered the simplest agricultural work and is not tiring. There is nothing to hide in this rural area, there is no other fun, and everyone loves to watch the excitement. Whenever there is a noise in anyone's house, the neighbors have already stretched their heads to look. Seeing that there was already a circle of people outside, Lu Meili suddenly felt a bit overwhelmed. Where did Zhong Xixi ever do this job? If we say he hasn't landed yet at the age of 18 and has earned a centimeter, the whole village can't find a second one. She instinctively wanted to go see her parents, but a few villagers started to cheer outside. I heard that Miss Chu is doing a good job. We haven't seen her before, so it just happened to open our eyes. Lu Meili was in a hurry to get angry, but she couldn't help it. Thinking of what Zhong Xixi said, she didn't dare to speak now. I'm afraid that when I speak up, the whole family will have to join in. Zhong Xixi had no choice but to bite his lips and walk up to the few cotton plants in his private plot, slapping them on the top. The people around suddenly fell silent. This is really topping it out. Zhong Xixi hit the cotton top hard several times until he knocked off a leaf before stopping. Look, I will do it, right? There was a dead silence around. Zhong Xixi sneered, sure enough, if a person doesn't die, they won't die. Zhong Xixi's various actions are now likely to be regarded as pests of the people. She doesn't need to take any action, this matter is settled. In this era, people who don't love labor are the ones they dislike the most. Not to mention a village, even a family can turn against each other. Zhong Xixi's attempt to hit the top with one hand completely aroused public anger, and surrounding villagers frowned. This girl from the old Zhong family is really not good. This is not just a lack of love for labor, the people's borers cannot be easily spared. That's right, Sister Lu. You can't educate girls like this. I heard you still want to marry the son of the brigade leader's family. How dare his family take this? That's really marrying an ancestor and going back. Upon hearing these words, the two women's faces immediately turned red and white, which would have implicated their hard-earned marriage. Unable to bear the child and the wolf, Lu Meili had to grit her teeth and stomp her feet. Isn't there a chance to teach the girl how to top the cotton? She's done a good job in all the other jobs. I'll teach her this later and have her work in the field tomorrow. Let's supervise together. That's it. As soon as Zhong Xixi heard that he was going down, he looked pitiful and said, "Mom. Okay, stop talking. Let's talk about it now. My daughter is not a worm." The villagers were originally here to watch the excitement, and when they heard this, they didn't say much, so they all agreed. That's okay, what won't happen then? Let's teach together, big guy. That's right, we are also doing well for your old Zhong family. You can't be lazy as a good girl. Lu Meili listened, her nose smoking with anger, but she couldn't hold back a word. She looked at Zhong Xixi resentfully, blaming this dead girl for how well she was honing her. Zhong Xixi's success was complete, and the others dispersed. Without waiting for his aunt to speak, he led his younger brother to say that he was going to work underground to earn a share, and then turned around and left. However, after leaving the door, she didn't go down to the ground. If I remember correctly, now her and her brother's household registration is in Uncle's house, and the centimeters are also recorded in Uncle's household registration. What's the use of doing more? Not all of them are cheap. So, she needs to find a way to move her household registration out and settle down separately with her younger brother first. Take her younger brother to the back alley and ask him to keep an eye out for her. She then took a shortcut to the east end of the village. To move household registration, the first step is to prove that the uncle's family is not fulfilling their obligation to care for themselves and their younger brother, and that they are morally corrupt. To achieve this, there is a ready-made plan. As long as Zhong Xixi robs her fiancé, disguises her, and even takes a bite back, the village chief will definitely agree to move her and her brother's household registration. But this matter is troublesome, she still needs an ally. Undoubtedly, the man who was labeled as a hooligan along with him is the best choice. After all, I heard that the two of them will still stand on the platform in front of the whole village tomorrow to reflect. Who wants to lose face like that? Walk all the way to the last room in the village. Zhong Xixi stood outside the fence courtyard, where an old lady was collecting shoe mats. Please comment, leave a message, collect, like, love you all, your support is my motivation. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Everything is ready. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Everything is ready, Grandma, I'm looking for Hitsuhao. Is he at home? The old lady stood up, recognized her, and looked at Zhong Xixi with some displeasure. What are you looking for Chuhao for? Although she is old and has poor legs and ears, she has also heard some gossip in the village. It's this girl, her grandson saved her, and she even ruined her grandson's reputation for nothing. Zhong Xixi was about to speak when a steady and rhythmic sound of footsteps came from behind. Milk, I'm back. Zhong Xixi turned around and saw Hitsuhao carrying a stack of firewood on his back. He was tall and strong, with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a straight nose bridge. He carried a strong northern man's majestic aura, and his shoulders and arms, carrying firewood, were bulging with muscles that were like walking hormones. Zhong Xixi only glanced and then lowered her head, blushing and heartbeat. This man looks very explosive, and his whole body still exudes a sense of righteousness. She doesn't quite believe that such a person would be a murderer. Hitsuhao also recognized her and was stunned. He frowned and said, "What are you doing here?" I sent her to the hospital out of kindness, but later she was falsely accused of having an affair with her, which could have been explained clearly. But she blamed him for all the mistakes on the spot, beating and scolding him for plotting against her, which made it difficult to explain. The two were convicted of hooliganism, and tomorrow they will go to the whole village to reflect on it. He doesn't like to see such women. Seeing this, Zhong Xixi clearly remembered these things too. She quickly took out a stack of ointment from her pocket with some embarrassment and stuffed it into his hand. Don't misunderstand, I'm here to thank you for helping me last time and apologize for the misunderstanding. This is the recipe left by my mother before, I made it myself. I heard your grandmother often has lower back pain, why not give it a try? It's very effective. This is the bone and muscle patch that she took out of the space and tore off the packaging before coming, and the appearance doesn't show anything from that era. This is also something from the first area, such as common medicines such as cold medicine, fever-reducing medicine, ointments, eye drops, anti-inflammatory ointments, etc., which she can get. He Tsuhao suddenly had a stack of ointments stuffed into his hand. Seeing her completely different appearance from before, he was stunned for a moment, but still slightly frowned and pushed the medicine back, saying coldly, "No need." Zhong Xixi knew that this was drawing a clear line with her, after all, the two of them were already in a sensitive relationship now. She didn't mind either. She blinked her eyes and suddenly grinned, revealing a small white tooth. "He Tsuhao, I'm sincere. You can take the medicine. Actually, I have something else to talk to you about. We're going to have a self-criticism tomorrow. I don't think you want to stand on the stage and embarrass yourself, do you? If you don't want to, before 2 p.m. this afternoon, make sure to bring the village branch secretary to the dilapidated temple behind the house, stay quiet, and then I'll ask Zhong Xixi to tell you the truth himself." After speaking, she didn't wait for He Tsuhao to speak. She stuffed the medicine into his hand and turned around before leaving. Anyway, if he still wants face, how could he bring someone with him? Two thick and bright fried dough twists braids then turned a circle, and then fell back on her shoulder. In fact, Zhong Xixi was already good looking, but now she has a scar on her face that seems to have damaged her beauty. Under the dawn, she turned around like an agile butterfly, and He Tsuhao's heart was inexplicably touched by her butterfly wings. But he quickly regained his senses, frowning and touching his nose. Can Zhong Xixi tell the truth on his own? What a ridiculous thing. Maybe this dead girl is thinking of some bad trick again, he won't fall for it. On the other side, Zhong Xixi went back and saw her younger brother waiting for her in the alley from a distance. He stretched his neck and looked around, his small and thin body making him feel heartbroken. Uncle's family has a really dark heart. After his parents passed away, their family bullied his siblings to the death. The siblings rely on each other for survival, not to mention not having enough to eat or wear, and are always assigned heavy tasks by Lu Meili. Now, Zhong Mumu's size is half that of a child of the same age, which is due to malnutrition in her daily life. Zhong Xixi's heart was sour, and she couldn't help but feel heartbroken when she remembered the first time Zhong Mumu had wolfed down roasted chicken. "Mumu, let's go home." Zhong Xixi called up to his thin and black younger brother, and with a try-and-see mentality, he even had a few extra big white rabbit milk candies in his palm. Zhong Xixi's heart was filled with ecstasy. This was already the 4th time she had taken something out of the space today, but wasn't it the only chance she could use the space 3 times a day? Is it because compared to yesterday, she has regained her strength by eating and sleeping well, so she has indeed taken more times? With such thoughts in mind, Zhong Xixi held his breath and tried to use his mind to take things out of the space, but there was no response. It seemed that even if his physical strength was restored, the frequency would only increase slightly. In a daze, Zhong Xixi felt her arms swayed by a pair of small hands. "Sister, what's in your hand?" Zhong Mumu saw Zhong Xixi standing still and couldn't help but pull her arm, staring eagerly at the candy in Zhong Xixi's hand, like a obedient and loyal little milk dog. Sister always manages to produce delicious things, and by this time, Mumu had already firmly believed in Zhong Xixi. This is big white rabbit milk candy, it's so sweet. Try it. Zhong Xixi peeled off the sugar in her hand and stuffed it into Zhong Mumu's mouth. She watched as her younger brother's eyebrows and eyes curved before pulling him back. Is it delicious? Zhong Mumu's first time eating such candy was completely different from the crispy candy crumbs he could eat during festivals. It was even more delicious than the lollipops his sister gave him before. When his sister asked him, he quickly pursed his mouth and nodded heavily. Zhong Xixi was softened by his younger brother's appearance and stuffed the remaining few candies into his palm. You pack these few candies, and after finishing, sister, we'll go home and have some big buns now. Zhong Mumu couldn't help but swallow his saliva when he remembered the big buns he had eaten in the morning. He quickly stuffed the sugar into his pocket and patted it, indicating that his sister would definitely put it away. When the two of them returned home, there was a lively sound of conversation and the aroma of food coming from the crack in the door of the northern house, and Zhong Xixi and his brother were the transparent people isolated outside the door. The siblings now don't care about the simple meals of the elderly aunt's family. They exchanged a tacit look and went back to the room to eat the leftover steamed buns from the morning. You're hungry, eat quickly. Zhong Xixi took out the steamed buns and placed them on a small wooden table on the kong. The two of them sat on the edge of the kong. Zhong Xixi turned around and poured a bowl of water for his younger brother. The two of them sat on the kong and began to eat. Unlike the cozy atmosphere in the dilapidated house, there was a constant commotion in the northern room due to Zhong Xixi's work on the ground. Mom! Look at my fingers grinding out bubbles, and some people joke at me while I'm working. I don't even have the face to see anyone. Zhong Xixi, with red eyes, pushed the food in front of her to the side and refused to eat it in anger. She reached out a pair of delicate white hands and shook them in front of Lu Meili, causing several large blisters on her fingers to be exceptionally prominent. Seeing this, Lu Meili couldn't help but feel heartbroken. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Discovered. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Discovered. Oh my goodness, why did it grind like this after working for a while? Let's rest at home in the afternoon. Just go with your two sister.in.law and that girl from Xixi. Upon hearing Lu Meili's words, a bag of tears brewing in Zhong Xixi's eyes finally came down, and she couldn't help but hate Zhong Xixi for colluding with outsiders to embarrass her. That's a lot of trouble, two sister.in.law, mother. Otherwise, I'll go and save time for someone to cause trouble and say I don't love labor. Zhong Xixi looked at his elder brother and sister.in.law with half coquettish and half hopeful eyes, forcing the two of them to smile and speak in front of Lu Meili. My little sister has delicate skin and tender flesh. Let's rest at home. The second daughter.in.law is the best at being a good person, so she can only suppress her unwillingness and mischievously please her mother.in.law who only has a sister.in.law in her heart. Lu Meili nodded with great satisfaction when her two daughter.in.law said this, and then warmly greeted Zhong Xixi to eat. The portion given to her was obviously different from the one given to others, both of which were fine grains. My daughter has suffered a lot from her work. What if she doesn't eat something good? Mom, Zhong Xixi and her brother haven't eaten for a day, haven't they? Why haven't they seen anyone? Satisfied, Zhong Xixi took a few bites of food, but suddenly put down his bowl and became curious about the movements of the two siblings. If it were normal, Zhong Xixi's pitiful little brother would have come begging for food long ago, but they haven't spoken in the past few days. I see that the door to the southern house is closed, so I think it should be inside. The eldest daughter.in.law took a few words, feeling somewhat sympathetic towards the plight of Zhong Xixi and his siblings, thinking that Lu Meili would show kindness. Yeah, I'll go take a look. They haven't eaten for a whole day, so don't get hungry. Unexpectedly, Zhong Xixi suddenly stood up upon hearing this. She already hated her two siblings so much in her heart that she couldn't let go of an opportunity to ridicule them. Moreover, Zhong Xixi made her feel embarrassed in front of the villagers today, which she couldn't swallow. Zhong Xixi tiptoed to the door of the broken house between the siblings, and gently leaned his ear to the crack of the door to listen to the commotion inside. These two people haven't eaten all day, I'm afraid they're so hungry they can eat dirt. Zhong Xixi couldn't help feeling proud in his heart. The only good noodles in their family were made into white bread by her mother just now, which she had given her to eat. The entire Zhong family did everything for her benefit, and unlike these two wild seeds, they could only make a living under their hands. After eavesdropping outside the door for a while, Zhong Xixi didn't hear anything except for a faint sound. Can these two people be Iron Men? Zhong Xixi leaned his eyes close to the crack in the door, only to be snatched away by several bright, pure white, oily meat buns on the small wooden table. I saw Zhong Xixi breaking open the bun in half, and the meat inside was filled with the same amount of meat and fish that Zhong Xixi had been exposed to all year. She was so greedy that her saliva almost fell off. Zhong Xixi gulped down a mouthful of water and watched as Zhong Xixi stuffed the meat bun into her mouth, with oil dripping down the edge of the con. Not to mention meat, even oil is a treasure. The Zhong family is willing to use chopsticks to dip a little bit of oil and water when cooking. Where can they put so much oil? Suddenly, Zhong Xixi's lunch was compared to Zhong Xixi's and turned into pig food. What's even more despicable is that the fragrance of the meat bun faintly reached Zhong Xixi's nose, causing her stomach, which had not eaten enough due to anger just now, to cry faintly. Although there was such a delicious steamed bun, she couldn't eat it. Zhong Xixi was almost crying with envy and wished he could come forward and grab it directly. She pushed the door open with a thud. What are you sneaking around the house and eating? Zhong Xixi's appearance startled the two inside the room. It's none of your business. After Zhong Xixi saw clearly that it was Zhong Xixi, he quickly continued to eat the steamed buns with his younger brother. Without even giving her a glance, Zhong Xixi was so angry that he chopped his feet and wanted to grab them, but he didn't work normally and couldn't grab them at first glance, so he had to give up. When did you go to my house to steal steamed buns? Wait for me, I'm going to tell my mother. Zhong Xixi had no choice but to speak, without paying any attention to the reactions of the siblings in the room, afraid that they would finish the remaining steamed buns. He quickly turned around and went to the east room to report to Lu Meili. Sister, what should we do? She saw our steamed buns. Zhong Mumu was afraid that the delicious buns would be taken away by his aunt, and he eagerly stuffed all the half-bitten buns into his mouth. It's okay, you eat slowly and be careful not to choke. However, Zhong Xixi poured another bowl of water for his brother who was wolfing down, giving him a fearless look and waiting patiently for Lu Meili to come and cause trouble. At this time, in the northern room, Zhong Xixi complained to Lu Meili about the behavior of Zhong Xixi's siblings with pear blossoms and rain. Mom, the two of them are hiding inside the house eating steamed buns, all made of meat. Why do we still have to eat this tough steamed bun? What? Meat buns. Can it be that they stole the dried meat they had stored for a long time? When Lu Meili stopped tidying up the dishes, she rolled up her sleeves and went to the southern room. Why, eat mine and use mine, and now shamelessly steal mine. The door of the nanwu, which was already difficult to close, was slammed loudly by Lu Meili, while the siblings were still the same as when Zhong Xixi arrived just now, sitting at the table eating steamed buns without any regard for Lu Meili's feelings. With support from someone, Zhong Xixi wanted to take the steamed buns off the table first, but was snatched and protected by Zhong Xixi. She confronted Lu Meili and her daughter with a cold and stern expression. Why, as long as it's Baozi, it's stolen from your house. Take a closer look, do you have such good meat Baozi in your house? Zhong Xixi broke the complete meat bun in half, inside which was a large ball of meat filling, with a genuine and oily taste. However, Lu Meili's family had not been exposed to meat for almost half a month. This steamed bun is really not something that the Zhong family can have. Lu Meili and Zhong Xixi were choked and speechless by Zhong Xixi's words. The mother and daughter looked at each other, and Zhong Xixi reluctantly gave Lu Meili a glance. She has always relied on Lu Meili's love to dominate at home, wanting to be the first to own anything good. Now how can she be willing to eat better than her siblings who are usually trampled on by her? Lu Meili understood her daughter's intentions and was also somewhat envious of the steamed buns in Zhong Xixi's hands. Her eyes rolled and she started scolding. Where did that come from? Could it be that you went out to steal it? Oh my, our family can't be tarnished by your two little brats' reputation. Hurry up and bring it to me, I'll go and return it to them. Lu Meili was about to reach out for the last steamed bun on the table, but was preempted by Zhong Mumu, who was protecting her food. She stuffed it into her mouth in a few bites. Zhong Xixi patted his back and said, Mumu, don't worry, eat slowly. Zhong Mumu's mouth was full of meat, and her cheeks were bulging. Soon, she stretched her neck and gulped down everything. Lu Meili and the others were overjoyed. The two of them stared angrily at the meat foam at the corner of his mouth. If it weren't for Zhong Xixi's strong blocking in front, perhaps they could have directly stepped forward and pulled the meat bun out of his mouth. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Self-Confession. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Self-Confession. Zhong Xixi was amused by the appearance of Lu Meili's mother and daughter. If they knew that they had all the resources in the entire space, wouldn't their eyes be on the verge of falling out? With such thoughts in mind, Zhong Xixi suddenly had a plan. Since this person was in front of her, it saved her the trouble of supporting the stage. Auntie and sister, we didn't steal this steamed bun. Do you know who gave me the bun? It was given to me by Brother Heng from the Bai family. You're talking nonsense. Brother Shuheng wouldn't give you these things. As soon as Zhong Xixi said this, he first didn't believe it and directly retorted. She knew exactly what kind of slapping by Shuheng was. Before, when Zhong Xixi didn't disfigure himself, he was already fascinated by him. Now that Zhong Xixi has become ugly, will he give her meat buns? But Zhong Xixi didn't care, instead he remained proud and said, don't believe me. In the afternoon, Brother Shuheng even invited me and said he wanted to give me something else good. After all, I was the one who got engaged to him. We knew from a young age that we would become husband and wife in the future. How could all these years of friendship be cut off immediately? If Zhong Xixi said so on weekdays, Zhong Xixi would definitely not believe it. But now that the meat buns are in front of him, there are only a few in the village that can eat meat. If this meat bun wasn't given by the Bai family, where else could it come from? With such thoughts in mind, Zhong Xixi swept over Zhong Xixi's already recovered face, feeling somewhat unconfident in his heart. Even Lu Meili, who was standing beside her, glanced at Zhong Xixi and didn't know how to explain this for a moment. You're lying, he wouldn't do this. Seeing Lu Meili speechless, Zhong Xixi was already 7% convinced and grabbed Zhong Xixi's sleeve to ask for her explanation. Zhong Xixi knew that she had successfully planted a seed of doubt in Zhong Xixi's heart, and deliberately pretended to be sweet in front of him. Is it true? Just follow and take a look this afternoon. I know you won't give up unless you see it with your own eyes. Zhong Xixi clapped open Zhong Xixi's hand. Wait until the afternoon. Hey, why did you bring me to such a rundown place? Zhong Xixi did indeed follow Zhong Xixi out of the door. She specially wore the floral dress that Lu Meili had made for her, which had a strong sense of comparing her to Zhong Xixi. At this moment, seeing Zhong Xixi bringing her to the village next to the dilapidated temple, she had some doubts in her heart. Zhong Xixi glanced at her and spoke disapprovingly. Why do you two always meet on the big platform at the village entrance? You. At this moment, there was no one around, and Zhong Xixi couldn't bear her pitiful appearance anymore. She angrily hugged her arms and looked up, then chose to stand in the most prominent position in front of the dilapidated temple and wait. Zhong Xixi looked at Zhong Qiqi's bright and radiant appearance, but she was also a bit uncertain. She couldn't be sure if He Tsuhao had brought anyone here. After all, she had just passed through, and even if the original owner remembered, he didn't know much about this person. But as it concerns one's own reputation, this move cannot be ignored, and one can only grit their teeth and lead Zhong Qiqi here. As the saying goes, planning depends on people, and success depends on heaven. Even if someone doesn't come, I can still disgust her. After waiting for a while, Zhong Qiqi began to feel a bit impatient. Are you lying to me? Zhong Xixi, why hasn't Brother Shuheng come? Are you trying to provoke the relationship between us? I can tell you that our relationship is stronger than Jin Jian's. I won't fall for you. Don't dream anymore, don't even look at your current appearance. Even if it's you who posted the book upside down, Brother Heng won't take a second look at you. He can only be mine. Zhong Qiqi glared angrily at Zhong Xixi's face, but inexplicably lacked confidence in what he said. I don't know what's going on, but it seems that the injury on Zhong Xixi's face has faded a lot in such a short time. She was already better looking than herself, and even if she had a scar, she couldn't conceal the beauty emanating from her bones. It's hard to say that this dead girl really seduced by Shuheng with her shameless face. Zhong Xixi listened to her angry accusations, but his mind was not focused on them. He tilted his eyes towards the direction of the dilapidated temple until Yu Guang swept across the hem of his clothes before finally letting go. Seeing Zhong Qiqi's face change, he stared straight at her face, but was not angry. Instead, he took advantage of the situation and led Zhong Qiqi to speak. Why are you speaking so harshly? Who asked you to stand there like a butterfly? Maybe Shuheng didn't show up because he didn't want to see you here. A sentence almost made Zhong Qiqi vomit blood in anger, and he turned around to push Zhong Xixi. You're talking nonsense. How could Shuheng not want to see me? He wants to see me the most. But now Zhong Xixi is no longer the same as before, can she still push? I saw her dodge backwards, almost causing Zhong Qiqi to fall and eat shit. Oh my, why are you so aggressive? Do you still want to push me to disfigure me? Of course, Brother Shuheng doesn't want to see you. It was you who deliberately seduced Brother Shuheng that day that I bumped into him. Brother Shuheng has told me all these things, and he will personally testify to clear my name. Zhong Xixi looked disdainfully at Zhong Qiqi, who stumbled and struggled to hold on to the corner of the wall before standing firm. Sure enough, Zhong Qiqi became even angrier. Since there was no one here, she didn't have to hide and retort, you're talking nonsense. It's clear that Shuheng and I are in love, and we volunteered. How could I have seduced him? If you hadn't bumped into us that day and brought up such a mess of things later on, maybe we would have gotten married long ago. What? Are you two in love? How could I bring up such a mess? It's clear that Brother Shuheng doesn't want to marry you and deliberately procrastinates with you. You're just talking nonsense. He Tsuhao insisted on testifying to you because he was the one who saved you. My parents and I finally came up with a plan to turn you into hooligans, which delayed some time. Seeing that Zhong Qiqi had already spoken, Zhong Xixi secretly chuckled, but with a shocked expression on her face, so, you admit that it was you two who fell in love and did that kind of thing that day. I caught you and you pushed me, and then falsely accused me and He Tsuhao. Upon hearing this, Zhong Qiqi felt a little more comfortable in his heart. He glanced at Zhong Xixi with a proud expression and said, that's natural. My good cousin, if you want me to talk to you, don't bother. Bai Shuheng and I have been together for a long time, and my parents agreed. Who would let you not have eyes to harm our good deeds? Zhong Qiqi became more and more proud as he spoke. Not only do you rely on your beauty, but you also want to seduce Brother Shuheng in front of me. That day, I disfigured you and already let you go. Why, do you also want a toad to eat swan meat? Zhong Xixi spoke more and more vigorously, and he looked around Zhong Xixi up and down, but didn't forget to spit. His smile was sweet and harmless. I'm just slandering you for having an affair with that Hitsuhao. Who made him appear and save you? My cousin's engagement is not broken, so tomorrow when you're reviewing, you can just make an appointment. Otherwise, you can just go straight to the murderer. I just want you to be a cow and a horse for me. I can't compare myself in any way. I just don't work hard and don't love to work. To be honest, I already have Shuheng's child in my belly. This explosive news, Zhong Xixi didn't expect that if Zhong Xixi lost her virginity before marriage, she would be drowned in saliva. She didn't expect that she is still unmarried and pregnant now. Seeing that Zhong Xixi had already vomited enough, Zhong Xixi really didn't want to see her hypocritical face, let alone play tricks on her. What my cousin said is really good. Zhong Xixi smiled and applauded for Zhong Xixi, which was also a disguised gratitude for her help. Zhong Xixi has not yet figured out why Zhong Xixi suddenly changed her face, only feeling proud in her heart. The next second, he trembled with fear from a furious voice behind him. Okay, you shameless girl. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Abandoning cars to protect handsome people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Abandoning cars to protect handsome people. Village Branch Secretary. Zhong Xixi struggled to turn his head to retrieve his voice and turn back to face the angry village branch secretary, as well as the man she had slandered, Hitsuhao, with a gloomy face at the moment. Zhong Xixi didn't mind the situation and spoke up to assist, fearing that the impact of Zhong Xixi's words just now on the village chief might not be strong enough. Uncle Nyo, don't blame my cousin. She's still immature, she just likes my engagement partner too much. The village branch secretary is named Nyo Wu, who always speaks the same principle in everything. He always treats the affairs in the village with a clear and upright attitude, and is highly respected by the villagers. The younger generation in the village usually affectionately calls him Nyo Shu. Zhong Xixi pretended to shed 2 tears and pleaded with the village chief, bringing back Zhong Xixi, who had been kept in the dark all along. She was being played with. Immediately, her face turned pale and she quickly pointed to Zhong Xixi to complain to the village branch secretary. No, it's not the secretary. It's her. She deliberately set up a trap to lure me over and say these words. I'm being slandered. Zhong Xixi wanted to make a scene but found that it was completely out of her control. After the temple was destroyed, Nyo Wu had already heard clearly and didn't want to take another look at Zhong Xixi. He coldly spoke up to warn. Your behavior is corrupting the atmosphere in our village. If you dare to cause trouble again, your Zhong family won't be a good person in the village. Zhong Xixi was immediately silenced by Nyo Wu's words. The integrity of the village branch secretary was evident to all villagers, and he had already spoken such words, which probably made him very angry. Girl, you've been wronged. It's my fault for you. What happened is also my negligence as the village chief. Nyo Wu couldn't help but soften his tone when speaking to Zhong Xixi, as he wiped away his tears as he saw that Zhong Xixi had been fighting tirelessly and remembered the rumors and gossip about the old Zhong family in the village. Uncle, it's not your fault, it's just that I still have to reflect in front of the villagers tomorrow. I feel quite uncomfortable in my heart. Zhong Xixi took this opportunity to bring up the matter of self-criticism, so as not to forget about leaving Zhong Xixi behind. It should also be the person who did the wrong thing to reflect on. Girl, follow along. After calming Zhong Xixi, Nyo Wu grabbed Zhong Xixi with his back hand and led her towards the village. You come with me to the Bai family and ask for clarification. Zhong Xixi, who had great martial arts skills, couldn't break free at all, and considering the words just warned her by the village chief, she could only silently shed even more tears. Zhong Xixi followed with a smile on her lips, her braids swaying slightly behind her, bright and generous. He Xiuhao's eyes flickered with such brightness, and he looked at Zhong Xixi with a slight improvement in the sunset. This girl seems to be different from her previous appearance of being soft, weak, and afraid of hands and feet. If it weren't for the ointment she gave her today that really worked for her grandmother, He Xiuhao wouldn't have planned to come. I didn't expect that Zhong Xixi would be so excited with just 2 or 3 sentences that Zhong Qiuqiu would reveal everything and still be able to confront the Bai family now. You should know that the Bai family is also considered a respectable family in the village, but this time they will encounter the village chief, this upright and black-faced official. When He Xiuhao was stunned by Zhong Xixi's attention, he coincidentally blinked at him and quietly gave him a thumbs up. For some reason, he actually felt that this girl was a bit cute. But he quickly threw this idea out of his mind. It's just a bit clever. When a few people arrived at the Bai family, Bai Shuheng's mother Zhao Wanfen was drying clothes in the courtyard. The smile on her face stiffened when she saw Niu Wu pulling Zhong Qiuqiu's imposing figure. "Brother Niu, what's wrong with this girl? It's clear what she did wrong. It's up to you to be angry." Zhao Wanfen originally didn't like Zhong Qiuqiu, but unfortunately her son did. She had no choice but to treat Zhong Qiuqiu as her daughter-in-law since it was already like this. Zhong Qiuqiu's eyes were red and he silently lowered his head to cry, while Zhao Wanfen was somewhat puzzled. "Call your son out, I have something to confront him face to face." Niu Wu let out a roar. Zhao Wanfen scanned around and saw Zhong Xixi and He Xiuhao following behind Niu Wu. His eyes flickered for a moment. "Oh, is there any misunderstanding between you, brother Niu? Come on, don't worry, you guys have a glass of water first." Bai Yaozong and Bai Shuhuan heard the commotion and walked out. "What's wrong with Uncle Niu?" Zhao Wanfen took a step forward, raised her hand, and lightly patted Bai Shuhuan's arm. "You child, what's bothering you, Uncle Niu? Go apologize quickly and explain the misunderstanding clearly." Zhong Xixi couldn't help but curl her lips slightly when she heard what she said. Interestingly, Zhao Wanfen seemed to be a smart person. However, so what? Zhong Qiuqiu said everything that should be said and not said, and the child in his belly was evidence. This Bai Shuhuan could never escape. "Bai Shuhuan, now I'm asking you, are you just with Zhong Qiuqiu before they got married? And you even got your belly bigger. When she broke through your mess, you disfigured him." Niu Wu lit his dry smoking gun and took a puff. "And he also slandered the innocence of Xixi and the He family kid. Is there really such a thing?" After listening, Bai Shuhuan was taken aback and looked at Zhong Qiuqiu, who was crying with pear blossoms and rain. His face immediately turned pale. Done, it was discovered. He instinctively blurted out, "It's none of my business. I don't know anything, I didn't do it." Upon hearing this, Niu Wu didn't understand anything and angrily slammed the table, shouting loudly. This is not only about your moral character and lifestyle, but also about committing crimes. If you were to be punished before, you would have to go to prison to accept reform. Tomorrow, just the 2 of you, go to the platform at the village head for me to reflect." "What? Let Bai Shuhuan conduct a self-criticism, then how will the Bai family continue to behave in the village in the future?" And Zhao Wanfen next to her spoke at this moment. "Oh, brother Niu, you don't know the character of Shuhuan from childhood to adulthood. When he was a child, he was so scared that he hid in the house and refused to come out. Growing up and becoming a literati, how could such a thing be done? Was it instigated by someone?" Zhong Xixi listened beside her, unable to resist clapping and cheering. Zhao Wanfen is really skilled at speaking, and in just a few words, she pushed the matter onto Zhong Qiuqiu. Sure enough, it's still the son who matters the most. Zhong Qiuqiu was not a fool either. Seeing that Zhao Wanfen was about to lose his guard, he immediately became anxious. "Auntie, I was also wronged." Zhao Wanfen smiled slightly inside, facing Zhong Qiuqiu with great tenderness on her face. However, Her words made Zhong Xixi heart sink into the ice cellar. Chu, it's time for this. If you did it, admit it. Chu, Auntie knows you're wrong, but you said that since you got along with Shu Heng, this child has changed into a different person. If these things were to be spread today, your uncle and I wouldn't be able to be human beings anymore. Our family would rely on your uncle's small salary as a team leader to exchange for food vouchers. What do you think we should do in the future? Don't worry, Auntie will talk to village chief Nyoel and strive for leniency. Don't worry, you now have the bones and flesh of our Bai family. Even if we finish the review, we can get married. The report is still based on statistics, girl. If Shuhan and you are going to review tomorrow at the meeting, then your aunt and uncle won't be able to be good people either. Why don't you go and review alone and settle this matter? If you don't go, then. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Evasion of Responsibility. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Evasion of Responsibility. If you don't go, then we'll have to send Shu Huan to the town to avoid the storm. Upon hearing these words, Zhong Xixi couldn't understand why Zhao Wanfen was threatening her about her engagement. She has a bad reputation and her body is gone. Who else would want her besides the Bai family? But if she had to completely recognize her alone, Zhong Xixi was too lazy to watch the scene of the dog biting the dog, so she reached out her finger and poked He Tsuhao's shoulder. When she saw him, she couldn't help but squeeze his eyes. Is this play exciting enough? He Tsuhao looked away expressionlessly. This girl was originally designed with such a cunning plan. After comforting Zhong Xixi, Zhao Wanfen once again turned her gaze to Niu Wu. Brother Niu, Shu Huan has already been engaged to Xixi, and the marriage report has been filed. Isn't it a matter of time before this child is born? After all, it's not a big mistake for Shu Huan. Otherwise, that's it. At least our old Bai is also the captain of the team, and it's known that the impact on our village is not good, right? And now Xixi has recognized this child alone, you. Upon hearing this, Niu Wu also had a grudge against the family in his heart, but he didn't say much, so he turned his gaze to Zhong Xixi. Girl, you have suffered the most injustice. Do you think this way of handling things is okay? Is it useful to say it's not possible? Zhong Xixi stood there and said, then do as my aunt says. I don't have any objections. That's settled, Xixi. You can reflect on it at the meeting tomorrow. Upon hearing these words, Zhong Xixi was already crying uncontrollably. She couldn't accept it, even though everything was meant for Zhong Xixi, how suddenly it turned into her. Xixi. Is Xixi at home? It turned out to be late, and Lu Meili felt a bit uneasy, so she came out to find someone. Someone said they saw the village chief bringing Zhong Xixi to Bai Shu Huan's house, and then they followed him. I was speculating whether my daughter had already pierced through Zhong Xixi's lies, causing her face to sweep the floor. Harmful, it's a big deal. She even used the labor village branch secretary to judge, but since she's willing to help, she can still avoid coming to see the excitement. Who knew, as soon as she entered the door, she heard those words and saw Zhong Xixi pitifully wiping away her tears. Lu Meili's chin suddenly fell out of shock. Xixi, what's wrong with you? Who bullied you? Tell Mom will make the decision for you. Lu Meili took Zhong Xixi, who was crying non-stop, and scanned the courtyard before finally turning her gaze to Zhong Xixi standing beside her. What's going on? Did Zhong Xixi, this dead girl, bully you? Mother, the secretary asked me to go and reflect on Zhong Xixi in front of all the people in the village tomorrow. Sigh. I don't have the face to see anyone anymore. What? Lu Meili was shocked and pale. Isn't it Zhong Xixi who needs to make a self-reflection? Is this damn girl doing something wrong? Zhong Xixi even personally revealed today that she had dealings with Bai Shuheng, and now she doesn't know what she said. Surprisingly, she asked Chu Chu to conduct a self-criticism. Zhong Xixi was crying uncontrollably, but when he finally came to support himself, he gave a brief overview of the situation. Upon hearing these words, Lu Meili realized that her daughter had been played with, but she couldn't blame her own daughter. It's all this damn Zhong Xixi, dead girl. I didn't see that there was still this scheming behind it. Zhong Xixi, you eat mine and use mine. You're just bullying your sister outside like this. Look, I won't kill you today. Lu Meili picked up a broom from the Bai family yard and knocked it over. Zhong Xixi quickly reacted and hid behind the village chief. Niu Wu couldn't tolerate Lu Meili throwing things in front of him, and besides, this was something that Zhong Xixi had done wrong. He grabbed the broom in front of Zhong Xixi and pushed Lu Meili with force. Lu Meili was pushed to sit on the ground. Zhong, instead of throwing tantrums here, why don't you ask your daughter what good deeds she has done? Don't be too stubborn and only know how to bully a little girl without a father or mother. Niu Wu was really angry, after all, he was the village branch secretary. As soon as his aura was displayed, Lu Meili was immediately frightened and quiet. Your daughter made Zhong Xixi's face look like this and accused him of having an affair with the man who saved him. She has already admitted these two things, and asking her to reflect at the meeting tomorrow would be a lighter punishment. Lu Meili was left speechless by Niu Wu's criticism. Although she knew it was a certainty, she still struggled to the death. After all, if we really want to reflect on this, after losing face, can the Bai family still have her daughter? This is impossible. It must be Zhong Xixi, that dead girl, who slandered our family's integrity. Oh, hey, this lowly girl is just a lost star. I can't believe our family is doing well. Upon hearing this, Niu Wu angrily rebuked. Absurd. Your daughter is already pregnant, and the evidence is conclusive. Do you want someone else to accuse her? Upon hearing that Lu Meili was pregnant, a hint of ecstasy flashed in her eyes. Pregnant? Is your daughter pregnant? Just now, I was a bit worried. Last night, I reflected on it, and the people of the Bai family still despised her. Now that we all have children, the Bai family is going to marry everyone in, right? Zhong Xixi naturally caught a glimpse of Lu Meili's expression, rolled her eyes, and whispered a reminder in Niu Wu's ear. Auntie, why are you not surprised at all to know about Chuchu's pregnancy? Is it? Lu Meili's eyes immediately rolled around, pointing at the tip of Zhong Xixi's nose and cursing again. What are you talking nonsense about? I don't know anything. Zhong Xixi's eyes turned red, her head drooped, and the scars on her face were hard to ignore. She was low and gentle, as if murmuring to herself. Yeah, Auntie definitely wouldn't instigate my cousin to snatch my engagement. Niu Wu thought of Lu Meili's arrogant and domineering appearance just now, and his heart instantly had a number. The boldness of the girl from the Zhong family must be related to the guidance behind the family. I also thought about the kindness of the second son of the Zhong family in the village before his death. She showed even more pity towards Zhong Xixi and directly pointed at Lu Meili's nose, cursing. You shrew, you only know how to grind a little girl. I don't want to get involved in the affairs of your old Zhong family, but I have to take care of it now. Girl, you have suffered the most. As long as you say a word, whether you want to get back to the marriage arranged by your parents or anything else, uncle can make the decision for you. Zhong Xixi felt the kindness in Niu Wu's words, which was the warmth she felt after crossing over, in addition to Zhong Mumu. She couldn't help but wet her eyes. Lu Meili and Zhong Xixi looked at Zhong Xixi with a guarded expression, afraid that she would say anything she wanted to marry Bai Shuheng. Zhong Xixi scanned the faces of Lu Meili and her daughter with disdain. She wouldn't waste herself for a garbage man. Uncle, since my cousin is already pregnant with Bai Shuheng's child, even if the previous engagement is cancelled, I really don't know where my parents left the jade bracelet as a token. When I find it, I will definitely return it to the Bai family. My parents have said that they would rather keep a loyal dog than a man who shows mercy everywhere. Zhong Xixi spoke without mercy. Bai Yaozong and his wife were embarrassed by the words of a younger generation and could only pretend to be deaf and mute. Lu Meili and Zhong Xixi dared not speak in front of Niu Wu. Niu Wu nodded in agreement with Zhong Xixi's words. After today's incident, Niu Wu greatly appreciated the girl in front of him who had strategic plans and dared to take responsibility. Okay, you're not asking too much, it's just a bracelet. Uncle promised you on behalf of the Bai family here. Niu Wu's answer was straightforward, and Zhao Wanfan and Lu Meili on one side felt a bit reluctant. Just as they were about to speak, Niu Wu's gaze glared them back. Bai Yaozong didn't want to look too ugly, so he spoke up and agreed, and Niu Wu's face slightly softened. However, Zhong Xixi continued to speak. Uncle, I have something else to ask you to decide for me and my little brother at home. I want to move my brother and my household registration out of the Zhong family and let's live alone. No way. But a very strong voice came out next to him. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Separation of single passes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Separation of single passes. Lu Meili glared at Zhong Xixi with hatred. This little slut wants to run, it's not that easy. But Niu Wu said more forcefully than her, you shut up. Zhong Xixi glanced at Lu Meili and continued. In the past, my grandparents left behind an old house by the river on the west side of the village when they were alive. However, now that the house is old and has become a bit dilapidated, even if we tidy it up, it can allow my younger brother and I to live there for a while. Moreover, before my parents went, the village should have allocated a piece of homestead to my family. Later, because it was only left for me and my younger brother, we left it unresolved. Niu Wu listened to Zhong Xixi finish speaking, and then followed her words to reveal her thoughts. Do you want the village to approve a piece of homestead for you? Arguing with someone who understands is better than talking to Lu Meili. Zhong Xixi nodded like pounding garlic and said, if it's difficult, Uncle Niu, forget it. If she could take this opportunity to leave the Zhong family in one fell swoop, then she and her brother would have a peaceful life. That's not possible. It's not difficult, it's all within the rules and regulations. I'll report it to you in the next few days. You can take your brother to live in the old house by the river these days. I don't agree with that. You have a lot of ambition, you stay at my house and eat and drink from me. If you want to leave now, how can you do that? If you dare to ask for a homestead, it will be compensation for your parents passing to support you. After listening for a while, Lu Meili became extremely angry. The old house and the homestead left by Zhong Lauer and his wife had already been designated by her as her own belongings. Now, Zhong Xixi said that if you want to leave, you have to leave. There is no such simple thing. My younger brother and I will work as cows and horses for you. It's okay if we don't have enough to eat or wear, and I don't mind if your daughter snatches my engagement. But even if I die, I won't let the homestead left by my parents fall into your hands. Zhong Xixi blinked and said, Auntie is going to take everything. Is it really possible to see our siblings die? Lu Meili raised her palm and was about to greet Zhong Xixi in the face, but Zhong Xixi predicted in advance to avoid her. You scumbag, look at me today if I don't break your mouth and make you invert black and white for me again. Zhong Xixi deliberately stood still. Waiting for Lu Meili to come forward and make things worse, the expected pain did not come. On the contrary, Lu Meili over there let out a low shout. Oh, I hit someone. Zhong Xixi opened his eyes and saw a towering figure blocking in front of him, like a wall. The tone of speech was without any waves. I didn't hit you, you hit me and fell on your own. It was He Tsuhao who couldn't stand Lu Meili bullying anyone. Just now, when she rushed over, she stood forward. You're talking nonsense. I see you have an affair with Zhong Xixi, this despicable girl. Otherwise, why would you stand up and speak for her? You're just shouting, catch a thief. Upon seeing this, Lu Meili sat on the ground and stubbornly splashed, wanting to drag Zhong Xixi and He Tsuhao into the water. Lu Meili's behavior is undoubtedly a repeated challenge to Niu Wu's authority as a village branch secretary. He immediately scolded with a cold face and cold eyes. Master Zhong, have you had enough trouble? Let's talk about some vulgar language and slander against the innocent girl. I'll go out and spread the news about your daughter's unmarried pregnancy to see how you discipline her. I'm not ashamed. What? That won't work. After Niu Wu's words, Lu Meili immediately sat on the ground and made a fuss, feeling awkward and tense. The village chief only gave up when he saw her quiet and turned to talk to He Tsuhao, who had always been a transparent person. Young man, saving someone and being falsely accused is also my village chief's dereliction of duty. Today, I apologize to you in front of the big guy, which can be considered as an explanation for this matter. Niu Wu didn't have a good impression of this person who was imprisoned for murder, but today he did see a significant improvement. He knows to some extent that others don't know the inside story. There is no substantial evidence to prove that He Tsuhao killed someone about what happened back then. Later, it was heard that the victim's family had power and influence, and upon returning, they exposed this matter, which led to the identity of He Tsuhao's murderer being widely known. It's a pity for such a good young man. Niu Wu looked at He Tsuhao's tall and imposing appearance, feeling a little regretful. As long as the truth is revealed, you don't have to apologize to me. Niu Wu examined He Tsuhao and expressed his decision in his heart. Alright, our village is about to arrange manpower to go to the slope to the west of the village to cultivate land. I will also add your name this time, and you will follow suit when the time comes. This big guy is going to make more contributions to the village. He has been imprisoned and has a bad reputation. In the village, it is often not his turn to allocate more than 1 centimeter of work, and only work that others are unwilling to do and tiring will be allocated to him. But today, Niu Wu apologized to him and assigned tasks to him, which made He Tsuhao somewhat uncomfortable. He Tsuhao is inherently introverted and rarely speaks, and when he speaks, his words become somewhat stiff. Thank you. Zhong Xixi couldn't help but sigh. This person really has personality. Even the village chief likes to ignore him. Fortunately, Niu Wu didn't care about these things and said a few more words to categorize the situation, using both soft and hard tactics to make everyone disperse. Lu Meili realized that she had already lost everyone, so she quickly pulled Zhong Xixi back home, afraid of being seen and gossiping by the villagers. As she left, Zhong Xixi noticed the gaze on her back and suddenly turned back. Unexpectedly, he met the gaze of He Tsuhao, who had not yet had time to retract his gaze from behind. Zhong Xixi was taken aback for a moment, and then responded with a broad smile, which made He Tsuhao, who had been stared at by the young girl for the first time, feel a bit embarrassed. Although his face was not obvious, his ears silently turned red. He didn't originally think that Zhong Xixi would be very unwilling and would compete with Zhong Xixi. But I didn't expect to spend a lot of effort just to stay away from Bai Shuhuan. And it also caused Zhong Xixi to lose face and his reputation. Today, Zhong Xixi's words and actions seem different from what he had in mind. Even if she has ulterior motives, she doesn't seem to dislike them. From then on, Zhong Xixi could also be considered the person he could barely catch a glimpse of in this village. When He Tsuhao was thinking about it, he noticed that Zhong Xixi stopped and waved to himself. He Tsuhao, come over here. I have something to say to you. Zhong Xixi was afraid of attracting others, so she suppressed her voice and called out to He Tsuhao. He Tsuhao paused at his feet, turned around and calmly looked at Zhong Xixi, waiting for her words. Thank you for helping me today. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have left the Zhong family so smoothly. I knew you were definitely willing to help me. Zhong Xixi stood uphill, with a higher terrain than the one under He Tsuhao's feet. A gentle breeze blew, and her hair lifted lightly. Zhong Xixi's scarred half of her face was just blocked by the hair, and she was beautiful without realizing it. He Tsuhao couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed. In fact, he had no intention of actually taking the village chief with him. You don't have to thank me, I'm just because the ointment you gave works, and I don't want to owe anyone any favors. He Tsuhao touched his nose, then turned around and walked away quickly. Anyway, thank you for helping me. Zhong Xixi whispered to his back. This man is kind and fearless, honest and lazy to please. Although he looks cold, his character can be considered as a fresh stream in the village. Since you said the ointment works, I'll make more tomorrow and send it to you. Zhong Xixi didn't care if He Tsuhao could hear him, so he turned around and ran away like a butterfly. Her new life is about to begin soon, and she can't wait to tell Zhong Mumu the good news. Mumu, sister is back. But when she pushed open the door, she didn't find anyone. Zhong Xixi's heart suddenly tightened. Shouldn't something be wrong? End of this chapter.